All right. Well, welcome back to the Solutions Manual podcast. I am Dr. Sarah Farwell.
And I'm Dr. Zatonski. Nice to see you again.
Yeah, you too. And we are joined today by Sal Melo. And thank you, Sal, so much for being here on our podcast.
My pleasure.
Sal has a really cool story to share about well, I'll let you tell it, but it's a little bit it covers a lot of the pillars of longevity, I think. And so Sal, tell us, headline it for us.
Okay.
You started with a weight loss, your weight loss journey. So where did you start and how much did you lose? And then kind of take us back to where you started.
Okay. Well, my story is about not feeling well. I was tired all the time. Many times as I got a little heavier, I found myself going to sleep at 7 o'clock at night. And it wasn't that I was up at 5 in the morning, but I was very tired. I was carrying excessive weight, and it was starting to take a toll on my health. And I actually went to the doctor because I have a history of kidney disease in my family. Fortunately, I have not had any issues with my kidneys, but when I was 35 years old, I started to try to stay on top of things. So I went to the doctor, and as I was gaining weight, he said, Sal, your cholesterol is starting to get over the 200 point. And he said to me, you should consider exercise. This was when I was about 37 years old. And I said, do I have any other options? Because it wasn't that exercise wasn't possible for me, but I wasn't really interested. So he said, well, you can take a pill that will control your cholesterol. So I'm like, well, let's go with that. Let's see where this goes. But I tried to take the pill, and it did help somewhat, but the weight gain continued. And I used to think that my way of dealing with things was, get the next size pants or get the next size shirt. And I found myself going from, in my early 20s, let's say a size 36, because I'm a big statured guy. I'm not like lean. I'm 6 foot. And I got up, believe it or not, to a size 44 in pants. And I kept kind of dealing with my weight gain by getting larger clothes. So I started feeling more and more fatigued. And I actually got up to the point where I was 270 pounds. Right now, I weigh approximately 225 pounds. I feel much better weighing 45 pounds less. And there was a time when I was 270 that I thought, I have to do something about this. And I couldn't figure out what to do. And fortunately, I kind of took it on myself to go to a Zumba class. And it was interesting because the Zumba class was at 8:30 or 9 a.m. in the morning. And I walked in there wearing kind of a t-shirt, pants, and a jacket. It happened to be wintertime. When I walked in, I actually knew the instructor, and I guess that's what made me feel a little more comfortable. I wasn't walking into a room with everybody being strangers. At least I knew who would be there, and I hadn't seen this person probably for 15 years. And I walked into the room, and it happened to be at a studio. They were having issues with their HVAC system. And I was asked when I walked in the room, are you here to fix the HVAC system? And it wasn't, they weren't being judgmental. Julie, the instructor had mentioned that, well, she knew that I was mechanically inclined and I had renovated many properties in the area where I live. And I said, no, I'm actually here to participate in your Zumba class. And said, welcome. And so kind of took my jacket off, and 5 or 10 minutes later, there was about 8 or 10 people in the class, and I did the best I could. I started participating, and I enjoy music, and it was basically choreography built into a fitness class. And she was her genre was more oriented toward fitness more than dance. Some squats, lunges, a couple of jumping jacks, and things like that. And I was engaged. I enjoyed it. And I found myself looking forward to going to the next class. So after a few weeks, it didn't happen overnight. After a few weeks, I actually started noticing I had more energy. I had lost a few pounds, and that really was motivating because when you feel better, it makes you want to do more of it. And there actually came a point where my spouse said to me that, Sal, maybe you should take it down a notch. You're going twice a day.
Okay.
I was going in the morning in between my work. I've always been accountable. Fortunately, I was self-employed. So after dinner with my family, at the time I had 2 younger children and their early teenage years, I would go back to the studio or different places where Julie would have her classes, and I would do a second round of Zumba for the day. So what was important to myself was I felt comfortable in the place that I went, and I find that was the most motivating thing, that I felt welcome, and then I didn't feel like I was out of place. And I find that's really important for someone, especially getting started, that you're not intimidated by the wrong group of people, because it can very easily change your mentality that you don't fit in, that you can't do it. And if you surround yourself with positive reinforcement, it will make the process much easier.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So kind of started there, and got to a time after. It didn't happen overnight, but it probably took about 2 years, and I actually got down below the 200-pound mark of my weight. And I noticed, I always enjoyed reading the Sunday paper, or sometimes during the week. This was back when papers were popular. It happens to be already 13 years, because I am now 55, and I started this process when I was 42.
Mm-hmm.
And I noticed there was a workout achiever. There was an article in the paper that if you know someone who would like to promote fitness and well-being in others, or yourself, please reach out to the Morning Call. And I thought, you know what, I would like to do this. It's not a pride thing. It's something that I'd like to perhaps help others, motivate them, that if a person that had lost 70 pounds at the time can do it, there are a lot of people out there that need to lose a lot. Not need, but would like to lose a lot less. 70 pounds is a lot.
Yeah.
And a mutual friend, Sarah, and I have in common, Colleen Zeke.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of told her my story after I got to know her a little bit at LA Fitness. And she said, Sal, that's like a whole other person.
Mm-hmm.
70 pounds. There are, teenagers or, young folks that weigh less than 70 pounds. And she said, that's amazing. And congratulations. She was, I think I made her feel good sharing that story. was a humble story that I was telling, but it also made her feel good about participating in that journey, because I find Colleen to be a very inspiring, welcoming person that is an instructor. She is an educator. She is a retired school teacher, but you can tell that she enjoys helping others.
Mhm.
And I feel the same way about Sarah. I actually met Sarah at LA Fitness as a cycling instructor. And I found her to be very welcoming. And I enjoyed attending her classes. And
Oh, thanks.
that's why, no, really, that's why I entertained the idea of, after I decided to purchase a property that happened to have a fitness center, to ask Sarah for her help. If you have
Hey.
any questions for me, I don't
Yeah.
know.
Sal,
Oh, yeah. So,
I
so
know
let's,
it was kind of
opening
a
a can
guy
of
that
worms. Yes, loads of things to ask.
lots of
So,
things.
Sarah, before you ask, I would just like to clarify a few things for
Yes.
our listeners in Europe. So at the peak of your weight, you mentioned 270 pounds, right? That was the moment where you decided something needs to be done about the weight. 270.
Yes.
So that's approximately 123 kilograms, if I believe, for people in Europe. And the lowest that you said was 200?
I actually had weighed about, at my lowest point, was about 195 pounds.
Mhm.
Okay. All right. So 195 pounds in kilograms, it would be approximately 89 kilograms.
Yes.
So that's a remarkable achievement. And one of the reasons, and again, it was quite a while ago as well, right? You've mentioned 42 years of age, now you're 54, it's 12 years ago. So you've managed to maintain your success for over a decade now, right? I mean, yes. So this is one of the reasons we would like to ask you a lot of questions, Sal, today, because we know from experience that in practical terms, it's easy to lose weight. It's difficult to keep it off. And most people who quickly lose weight, 95% in fact, tend to get everything they've lost back with a surplus. So you belong to the rare 5% of very successful people to manage to fend off the weight for a very long time and keep it there. So there are things that we know you must be doing really, really well. And before we get where Sarah will start drilling on those specifics, just a few more clarification points. So you've mentioned cholesterol going above 200 mark.
Yes.
Which that means the milligrams per deciliter. It's essentially total cholesterol going above normal. So I just want to explain to people who are listening and maybe not necessarily testing themselves, this is a problem because it impacts the function of your blood vessels, right? It will collect as a plaque in your blood vessels. It's going to lead to heart disease. It's going to lead to stroke, potentially. It's going to lead to other problems with your blood vessels, to hypertension, to reduced function, organ function, to erectile dysfunctions in men, cognitive decline, Alzheimer's disease, many other forms of dementia. So this sounds simple. Oh, my cholesterol was over 200, but it's actually a big deal, right? Do you know what it is right now? Because I understand you didn't have a surgery, you didn't take any drugs to help with weight loss. This is just organic, long-term, sustained, hard, daily effort.
It is. It's a balance of both, and probably the difference between my least amount of weight, let's just throw the number back to 200 to keep things simple, has been, once I had lost that weight, some folks actually thought perhaps that I was not healthy, because they knew me before, and perhaps I lacked muscle tone.
Mm-hmm.
So what I decided to do is to integrate strength training, because most of my workouts were cardiovascular training, cycling. It was like not high impact, but it was a matter of more cardio than strength. Mm-hmm. So the reason that I perhaps have gained another 15 or 20 pounds has been through strength training and perhaps building muscle. And
Yes.
from others that I've spoken to, that when you do strength training, something that is gained is bone mass, and also you have actually more energy reserved in your muscles. So that's why perhaps that's the difference between, let's say 225 and 200.
Absolutely.
It's not all muscle. Some of it has, naturally we have a BMI or, body mass. And it fluctuates a little bit. It's not always going to be 100% because we emotionally, sometimes we decide to have on a regular basis for sometimes a short amount of time, sometimes a long period. We decide to have, like I enjoy pastries, I enjoy cake, and I enjoy having perhaps a glass of wine or something like that. And our weight will fluctuate, but I do find myself, I do catch myself and say, you know what? I can see a difference based on what you're eating or what you're drinking. And we have to find corrections in that, that if we want to change things, we need to change our habits. So I've done that over the years. It hasn't always been 100% consistent within 5 pounds. We go on vacation sometimes, and sometimes there aren't options to go to the gym on a daily basis, which I enjoy, and our weight will fluctuate a little bit, but we should feel good about our attempts at maintaining our goals. But please, we'll go back to you. I'm sure you have.
Well, I think this is the point: is measuring weight is important, but measuring other metrics tells you a lot more about the whole picture, and whether it's not just about what you're eating, what you're putting into your body, but your body composition and other blood metrics.
And Sal, what about the things that you've mentioned, like your fatigue levels?
I have much more energy than ever because my body is no longer required to carry an additional 50 pounds. I've shared this with others. We may think 10 or 15 pounds is realistically okay. And I have shared that a gallon of water or a gallon of milk weighs 8 pounds. If you were 16 pounds heavier, it would be like carrying a jug of milk in each hand all day long. And if you think about that in your activities, perhaps doing a flight of stairs, what's it like doing a flight of stairs holding 2 gallons of milk versus none in your hands? And essentially you're doing the same thing, that if you're overweight, you may not feel all the fatigue in your arms, but all that same fatigue is there in your feet and your hips and your knees. Look at service.
You went from someone fatigued to being a fitness instructor, right? So it looks like being able to put down the 2 gallons of milk, can move you from the chair into being a fitness instructor. That's a remarkable achievement.
It can. It's something that not only does how you feel make a difference, but you can actually go to the next level, and you feel so well that you want to try to help others.
Well, I know a lot of people have benefited from you, Sal, and we kind of skipped over this part of your story. So you went to a fitness studio, you found Julie, a Zumba instructor. You became completely hooked on Zumba, it sounds like, as many of us have in the past. But you also then became a Zumba instructor, which isn't necessarily the same direction that other people have when they take a weight loss journey. I can go to the gym and not necessarily become an instructor. And then you opened up your own gym. Wow. So your story and your mechanisms of accountability for yourself have also been different. And not saying that that's what it takes, but for you, is that what it takes to be able to, when you think about the mindset shifts that you had in those maybe 10 or 12 years along the way, like what made you actually become the instructor, and what made you become the gym owner, and even today still instruct, and you still go day to day? So this is just part of the way that you keep yourself in check?
I do. And other than the blessing of the health of my family and myself, is that over the years, I have found opportunities doing what I enjoy. And the gym happened to be one of those when I had purchased that property. I'm a driven person. When I set my mind on doing something, I usually don't stop until I complete that goal. I feel great that I could do things at 55 that I couldn't do in my early 40s. And
That's remarkable.
it's very motivating. It's very motivating when you think of that. I was actually at a loss because I was not working to my potential, because my weight and my health was controlling what I was capable of doing.
Yeah.
You think about that, like a person, that's healthy, typically in their 40s, if you're healthy, you have a little more strength. You have more, as a man, you have a little more testosterone, and you have more strength. And so that really amplifies what my health has enabled me to do.
Yeah.
Yes, and I think there's one or more elements to this which we often discuss, Sarah, is so you feel better at 50 than you did at 40. Well, we know that for most people who don't regularly exercise, who don't take care of their own health, from approximately the age of 25 to the end of their life, their physical form and fitness and shape is generally a slow and steady decline. So is the cognitive function, right? So being able to revert that process and get you back on track and put you back where your potential is, not only makes you feel better today than it was 10 years ago, it will give you a tremendous advantage over people who don't take care of themselves and don't exercise in 20, 30, 40 years' time, where actually those differences will matter, right? There's a difference between being able to comfortably climb a flight of stairs and struggling to do that, right? Or there might be a difference when you need to carry the groceries to your car and, it's effortless, and whether it's almost unimaginable effort, right? And that's important to understand as well. It's not just the benefit that you get today, it's also the benefits that you will continue to collect throughout your life.
I agree. I wanted to share something with you so I don't forget to mention it. Is there are times after a workout, not like a strenuous, oh my gosh, like I almost killed myself today, not feeling that way, but there must be a release of endorphins that many times I will be in the shower, after my group fitness class, and these ideas and fresh thoughts, positive thoughts will come to me. And I'm like, wow, like it just, it's an amazing feeling. And I didn't feel that way before. And that's something I noticed in myself, and being somewhat entrepreneurially inclined. I implement these thoughts into my lifestyle, and I try to encourage my children. I have 2 children, and I try to encourage them and let them know that you can do anything you set your mind to. You just have to surround yourself with positive reinforcement. I just wanted to share the thoughts that I get sometimes after a typical energetic workout.
Right. And a workout that you enjoy doing. I think that that's a good key. You don't need to go and do high intensity interval training to get a mental refresh unless you enjoy that format. And there's many, many formats people can engage in that are not just physically beneficial, but mentally and emotionally beneficial as well. So I'm glad you mentioned the format, because I wanted to come back to cycling. And since you and I are very big fans of stationary bike, and so is Matt, and we talk about this in the context of doing exercise that you enjoy, and you clearly like to do cycling, and you've instructed it for many years as well. But another benefit of doing certain types of cycling workouts is for not the super high climbs and heavy hills and keeping your heart rate at its right below its maximum. You can do that, not recommended, but you can. But we use cycling, and we talk about cycling on our solutions manual for longevity. And when I say longevity, the actual physical changes that you can do, it's easier to do on a bike because you can keep your heart rate at around 60 to 70% of its maximum. So maybe not as much effort as you would normally be used to in like a group fitness class. But if you keep it there are physiological benefits to doing that, so that you can maintain your health, your cardiorespiratory fitness, and for longer. So I wanted to just use that as a transition into our sciencey portion of this episode, right, and talk about this zone 2 training and using biking, because a lot of the classes we see and a lot of the classes we do in studios are not designed to be zone 2 training. That's clear, because it's more interval, and that's engaging and it's fun, and you still get a physical benefit and you still get that mental benefit, the indexing and the thoughts that you have and the positive reinforcement. But that's different training, and there's a social aspect to it as well. But that's different training than zone 2 that you can get on a bike or a treadmill in very specific workouts. So Sal, are you familiar with zone 2 training, and do you incorporate that into any of your own personal cycling?
Well, I am not familiar. I would like to learn and be educated about this, but one thing I will share is that because as we get older, probably the only real health issue that I have is I don't have the best feet structure or foot structure in both of my feet. Mm-hmm. I have had hammer toe surgery in both, mm-hmm, and bunion surgery in both of my feet. Mm-hmm. And it's genetic, but one thing that is great about cycling versus perhaps somebody that does running or even Zumba is the low impact, mm-hmm, that it has on your joints. It still builds strength in your legs, but it does not affect that you don't get that pounding in your feet or your knees. And I think that's a benefit I wanted to share with you. Well, you're probably aware of that already, but perhaps someone that may be interested in cycling, yes, it's for everybody, whether you are a teenager or you are in your 90s. If you can get yourself up on that seat, yeah, get yourself situated or positioned, just like any other exercise, knees behind the toes, joints stacked, that it will benefit you. And it is for everyone, whether
you're
you
absolutely right. You're absolutely correct. And I think you mentioned bikes specifically for training. And yes, it's easiest probably to maintain appropriate form on a bike, especially, you probably covered all the essential details. And we do prefer bikes over treadmills, precisely for the fact that they are bike rides are far less straining on your joints. And the heavier you get, the bigger impact of walking can have on your knees. We also are not a huge fan of rowing machines because it's very easy to go out of form very quickly. So unless you have someone supervising you all the time, once you try to push that effort, the form goes out really, really fast. And that sometimes does more harm than good. So yes, we do like bikes. Mm-hmm.
But bikes are not the only way to get zone 2 training in, or healthy training. And that's true for any exercise or any equipment or any workout. Form, of course, is important for many reasons, not just to do the exercise properly, but and prevent injury, but to maximize the time that you're spending to get the maximum benefit. So, and Sal, like you said, setting up the bike properly is essential, and it happens to be a lower impact on your joints than other formats too. So now, do we want to talk a little bit more about zone 2?
Sure.
Yeah. So I'll just redefine it and then I'll pass it off. But so zone two, we talk about heart rate zone and a particular rate of perceived exertion. So zone 2 training is defined as that keeping your heart rate elevated, but at a level around 60 to 70% of your maximum heart rate.
Yeah.
For 45 minutes or so, at least. And that gives you certain benefits that you might not otherwise get if you are doing interval trainings or you enter into a higher zone 3 or zone 4. So Matt, can you talk about maybe where that comes from and what the what the cellular changes are that come with zone 2 training and why we should think about this?
Yes. So you have given the proxy definition for most people of what would that be. That's typically what people Google when they try to understand what zone 2 is. Fundamentally, the definition of zone 2 training is, first of all, fixed to each individual. Mm-hmm. Because it depends, it would define it as the highest effort that an individual can maintain without accumulating of lactate in their muscle. Mm-hmm. So this definition does not rely on heart rate. Heart rate is a proxy to what is metabolically happening in every cell of your body when you're performing a workout or an exercise at a certain level. Because it's a form of metabolic training, is not the typical reason why people go for, let's say, to the gym, right? When you go to the gym, people want to lose weight, people want to get stronger or faster, or they want to have or help them achieve certain athletic outcomes. So the training that you typically get in the gym is different, right? You've mentioned the social aspect. You mentioned it has to be fun. Endurance improvement, it's also something that you can do in classes, putting higher demand on your body. But the zone 2 training is a specific type of metabolic training that is designed to increase your mitochondrial health, is important because it directly translates to your longevity, to your body to maintain in a certain physical shape. And it's one of the fundamental pillars of physical fitness, right? So metabolic capacity, number one, and then the other parameter, the VO2 max, which is the parameter that is typically improved by high intensity training, right? Or endurance, right? So we define it by the level of lactate. So what is it and why does it accumulate? So I will try to go as little into the biochemistry as you can, but essentially every cell in your body, that includes your brain, that includes your muscles, and Sal already touched about this link between your cognitive performance and physical performance. Every cell requires energy to function. And that energy is obtained by a breakdown or more complex chemicals into their simpler forms. And during those chemical reactions, energy is released. And this energy we call as aerobic respiration. It's what we need to take the oxygen in. It goes to every cell in our body. The processes happen. Certain chemical reactions happen. We call it aerobic respiration. It's using the energy to give, using the oxygen to give every cell in your body energy to function. And this is the primary source of energy that your slow twitch muscle fibers are using. And the slow twitch muscle fibers, those are the ones that have higher density of mitochondria compared to the fast twitch muscles. So during your low intensity activities, when your overall energy demand is relatively low, fat becomes the main fuel for that energy type. So because it's primarily the type 1 fibers that will be engaged in generation of movement, right? It's like for the zone 2 training, which is relatively light training, you don't give all you've got. That's the whole point. Now, as you ramp up the intensity of exercise, your body can no longer rely on the mitochondrial function to produce the ATP. So that's the chemical that's required for release of the energy. And it will turn out to engage in more efficient process and using those faster muscle types. And in that process, your muscle will start producing a substance called the lactate. It's a byproduct of trying to get more energy when the certain demand is met. Now, that threshold varies for every person, right? And truly, we don't really know what it is for an individual. What is the level of effort that they can give before they will recruit additional resources that their body has to produce more energy, but the byproduct of that will be production of lactate. And those who don't exercise and then suddenly try to do this, they often feel this because the overaccumulation of lactate leads to the soreness of muscles. That's where there's too much of it when people feel it. Now, the thing is that as you become more and more trained or proficient, you will no longer feel that pain, but it doesn't mean that your lactate threshold has been exceeded. So the point of working at your zone 2 is to make sure that you work as close to the threshold of producing lactate without crossing that threshold. This can typically be measured or should be measured by taking blood samples, but this is impractical at home. So this is where all the heart rates calculations come in, and I'm going to come back to that point in a second. So how we can estimate that point when that happens. Now, when your lactate levels will reach approximately 2 millimoles, they will begin to spill over into the bloodstream, and that's where we can test this. And that's specific point where we can detect lactate in blood, although we've already crossed the threshold in cells. We call this measurable level your individual zone 2 threshold. You want to stay as close to that point for as long as you can without crossing it. It changes with your age. It depends on your genes. It depends on how well trained you are. And those differences can be relatively large. For athletes, it could be approximately 4 watts per kilogram of body weight. For some people, it could be under 1, right? So this is 500% difference between different individuals of how much output you can generate without crossing your lactate threshold. Your zone 2 thresholds indicates how good you are at oxidizing fats for use as energy, which is the overall marker of your overall cellular health. The higher it is, the more likely you are to live longer and age slower. And the good news is that it's trainable. So you can improve that from whatever that is by training in an appropriate way. So if you get to that point without crossing it, maintain it and repeat it as often as you can for as long as you can, and we're talking here months or years, what will be slowly happening is that your lactate threshold will be climbing up. So you'll be improving your body's ability to oxidize fat and improve, let's say, the health of every cell in your body. Now, this is good for you because we already covered some of those things. It will prevent or minimize the chance of developing cardiovascular diseases, neurodegenerative conditions. It can prevent you or even reverse metabolic syndromes, or becoming too big in waist and starting developing diabetes and similar things. Now, the importance of this for your overall health, so it's not just living longer, it's also making sure you don't get sick. And there are multiple mechanisms involved with this, which I think it would be best to direct our readers to the article that we have where they can get all the details. But what we need to cover here, and I think because we want to give advice to people on what to do, how do we determine what your individual threshold is without having our blood tested every year?
220 minus your age.
Yes, that's the estimate for the maximum heart rate.
That's the estimate for your maximum heart rate.
Okay.
And then your zone 2, best to estimate 60% of that number.
Okay, yes, so that's one way to do this. That can work. There's a simplified way, which can be helpful for some people as well, where we can simply subtract your age from 180. It will largely overlap with the first calculation that you have made. So let's take an example, right? So let's say you're a 40-year-old male, right? Sal, you started approximately the age of 42, right? So for the ease of calculation, imagine you're 40 and you want to start training at zone 2. So the simplest thing you can do is just take 180 and subtract your age. So 180 minus 40 gives you 140 beats per minute. Now, this is a broad estimate, right, that will place you somewhere in the middle of what an average individual would be. Well, you don't really know what is yours. So you need to do some tweakments to that number, some changes. We at Solutions Makers typically recommend for people who haven't exercised before to take away 10 from that value at the beginning. Because for people who have never exercised, crossing the lactate threshold is very easy. And it will be the case for at least a couple of trainings. Now, why is crossing that threshold a problem? Because the moment you start producing lactate, you will lose the benefits of metabolic training. So you want to stay as close to that level without crossing it for as long as you can. You've mentioned 45 minutes. We do believe this is an optimal time to do this. If you can do 60, that's even better. If you can do 90, that's brilliant. But you have to do it frequently. And you have to be able to restrain yourself not to go too fast. Now, if you go too low, in terms of your heart rate drops, that's fine, because maybe you're not training optimally, but you're not undoing the benefits of this particular type of training. So there's a lot of mental effort sometimes that needs to go into holding yourself back, being able to steadily persevere at your threshold, at the specific rate.
Mm-hmm.
But this is not enough to correctly estimate whether you are or are not, because the other thing you need to look at is something that we call the RPE, and RPE stands for the rate of perceived exertion. And this is a scientifically defined term, which is subjective. That doesn't frequently happen. So it's a subjective measure of how hard your body feels it's working during an exercise.
Mm-hmm.
So for zone 2, we assume that if you can comfortably hold a conversation while you're working out, you're probably below zone 2.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's difficult to speak comfortably in full sentences, you're probably above.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So you want to find out a level where you can speak. It's slightly uncomfortable, but it's perfectly doable. So that if you could imagine yourself answering a phone or being on a treadmill or on a bike, you could have that conversation and you will be able to manage it, although that probably wouldn't be your preference or wouldn't be too enjoyable thing to do. So that that sensation that you get, that point where you are, it's roughly when you combine the two, this is where you want to be. And you need to be able to adjust. If you see that speaking would become too comfortable, or you could talk on a phone for hours, then you probably need to make some adjustments. You also need to learn that if you continue with the training, with zone 2 training, over time, your capacity to produce more energy will increase. So you'll be putting more and more effort over time during your workouts while keeping a steady heart rate.
Mm-hmm.
The biggest challenge, and maybe, Sarah, there's something that you can help people to how to deal with this, is that those trainings can be boring. Well, because you're sitting at one level of effort and you're trying to sustain it for an hour, right? Mm-hmm. There's nothing changes. You don't adjust it to the music. You don't sprint. You don't sit. You don't take breaks. You don't get off the bike. You don't do other things. You just try to keep it steady for as long as you can. So it's not the most enjoyable thing, but it's definitely proven to be one of the strongest and most important types of workouts that you can do if you want to live a long and healthy life.
Yeah, I would encourage anyone to, if they haven't tried it, try it and see what kind of challenges you have. So boring may be one word, but I think for me, when I do this, it's day to day is different as well. And for me, I try to keep my zone 2 heart rate at 140 or a little bit below. And there are days that I can get to 140 and keep it there, no problem, with relatively little concentration on doing that. Maybe there's some adjustments and maybe sometimes it goes down. Some of that might have something to do with playlist and all sorts of other things. But there are other days that I try and keep it at 140 and it's very difficult. So I would encourage you to try it. Calculate your zone 2 target to start. If you've never done it, try it out. Tell us how it goes. And Sal, I'd love for you to try this and see how it goes for you.
Over the years, I feel like my cardio level has increased. It has not decreased because of my age. It's because of my regular workouts, and consistency has has enabled me to maintain those levels. I'm just, throwing that out there for you
So,
as an
Sal,
example.
what does your training regimen look like? What is your
Yeah,
day at
well,
the gym look like?
it's typically it's every other day is a cardiovascular exercise, and the other day in between is normally a little bit of strength training
Mhm.
with not high intensity, but a medium intensity warm up. So
Mhm.
we may do quick, fast feet, jumping jacks, let's say high knees. Fortunately for me, because I enjoy it, I don't always do it because I have to. There actually is some times where I may not go to the gym because I'm not uh, really a big fan of the instructors that are there that day.
Mhm.
And I may take my exercise of what I would normally do on and off, strength training and cardio training. I may do 2 or 3 days in a row of cardio.
Mhm.
If it's not fun, I lack participation. Uh,
Mhm. Yeah, well, this is where the art of programming comes in, right?
I'm
And
sorry.
this is where the art of programming comes in, right? To classes and fitness and
Yeah,
goals. But yeah, and it sounds like you started with primarily cardio, and you keep doing it, and it's good that you've put some strength in between, because loss of muscle as we age is an inevitability, maybe, unless you control with exercise and diet. So sounds like your regimen is really balanced now.
it is.
And just want to reiterate that you exercise every day.
I do.
Hmm.
I do.
Every day.
Yes.
Still twice a day, or just
No,
once?
sir. It's normally once a day for 1 hour, and it's usually in the morning. I enjoy sweet food, and my stomach. I wouldn't say that it's a matter of tolerance, but I could eat pasta or lasagna or a slice of pizza at 4 o'clock in the morning before I head to the gym.
Oh, you and me, Sal.
Yes,
And
and no. And what the point I was making is those types of foods, pasta, perhaps even desserts that have sweets in them, that sugar, if you utilize that as energy, which I
Absolutely.
really feel if I don't eat before I go to the gym, I don't have the energy. If you can, is prior to a workout that you could actually use that energy in a positive way instead of perhaps having that slice of cake or pasta at 9 o'clock at night, where it kind of uh,
Of course.
the starch is perhaps turned into sugar, and your body will not benefit. You're still tasting it, you're still enjoying what you're eating, but perhaps you can utilize it as positive energy instead of an energy that is going to just be absorbed as sugar and not put into your workout.
Yes, I
Just
love this. I love this concept for our listeners as well. That using fuel as energy, using food as energy or as fuel for you, right?
yes,
If you know that there's a journey or effort coming, and you eat something that you enjoy, and you know you're going to burn this because you're going to teach a class or you're going for an hour-long session in the gym, that's absolutely fine, because whatever you eat will be used or utilized to fuel you, sustain you during the workout. By eating the same thing at night, where you will spend the rest of the night in bed hardly using any energy, will simply be stored as fat. You cannot put more energy into the car than the fuel tank allows you, but you can put more food in your stomach than your body will use over the next couple of hours. And unfortunately, everything that you will not use will end up as fat. I mean, that's what the body is designed to do: store the excess energy as fat. And one of the ways of understanding what it is to weigh more than you should is simply you've stored more fuel than you need, right? It's too much energy coming in, and your body tries to find a way to keep it for later. And if the later never comes, that's where the bad things happen.
hmm
so I guess if you use simple math as to the calories that you're taking in that you're not burning off, you can expect that to be converted into 1 pound of fat.
Of course.
That's right. Yeah.
It's simple, but it's not easy to implement. And by the way, for listeners, Sarah, because we do have the complete guide and the entire framework that we use to work with people who want to lose fat or gain muscles available to everyone for free, right? This is what we use with our customers. This is what we know works 100% if you stick to it. So all you have to do is to send us an email.
Yeah.
Send us an email to info@solutionmakers.com.
And we'll send you.
Yeah, tell us if you're a male or a female, and we'll send you the guide.
So one last thing I want to touch on while we have you, Sal, if that's okay, is since you've had this change in your lifestyle for almost 15 years, working out every day, being conscious of what you eat and what you put in your body, do you have the support around you that you need to maybe maintain this lifestyle, and not just for now, but for the far future?
I do, and I think that support doesn't come from my home. My son he's very disciplined about going to the gym, and every day my son is a Pennsylvania state policeman, and there was a time as a young man, as a, let's say, 15-year-old, he enjoyed unlimited chicken wings, unlimited sugar drinks. We used to buy him, and not because we wanted to. He wasn't demanding, but you know how it is. As a parent, you try to give your children what they want. Naturally, after seeing and helping me at the gym, I spoke to other folks about this today, was that being in an environment where people were healthy because of their habits and physical activity, it changed his life. And he saw that happen to me with a substantial weight loss, and he did not want to go through what I went through. And if we balance what we eat and how we move and exercise, we could find something or a level that we feel comfortable with, and but I find my support at the gym and motivated by seeing others that are successful in maintaining their level of health.
That's so you shared a few important things in this conversation with us already. I think earlier on you said, if I remember correctly, you mentioned the importance of being focused and staying on your goal. If you want to achieve what matters to you, right? Which is, I think that's a very important piece of advice. You've also mentioned to our listeners that you need to be surrounded, or that it helps you in particular to be surrounded with the right type of environment. I think you used the words like that you cannot be feeling out of place, right, in the environment that you're in, and that you need to be surrounded yourself with people who make that process easier for you. But the truth is that environment is not always possible for everyone to change, right? I mean, you can change the people you interact with. It's more difficult to change. It's easy to change friends. It's difficult to change work colleagues. It's sometimes impossible to change your family. And I think that you've mentioned earlier in a conversation as well that your spouse was actually not very happy with you going to the gym twice a day. So is there something that you can elaborate more, and how to whether it has an impact on you, or what do we do when there are some environments that are difficult to change?
I think everyone has choices, and I've always been the type that I've never put myself first, but I've also decided to not allow myself to be last. And we need to kind of find a balance and not allow ourselves to be the last person that gets taken care of. And I don't hold that against my spouse, and that she didn't like the idea of me going to a class in the evening when I had already done one in the morning. Uh, would it have made a difference looking back? Uh, Maybe not. Maybe that second class wasn't as beneficial as I thought at the time, but I never regret having done more than one exercise in a day. Looking back, I think perhaps it was motivating for me to have something to look forward to.
You've also said that, of course, you were gaining weight and then you made a remarkable progress and you stayed there. And we primarily talk about physical exercise, but like one of the things I tend to say is like it's difficult to outrun a donut. So did your dietary habits, your nutrition change over the last 12 years? What is it now? What do you pay attention to?
I think I pay attention more to volume. I enjoy eating. I love the taste of savory food.
So do I.
I do. I enjoy it. And, I don't regret eating whatever I want. And that is one of the benefits of being healthier, having a healthy physical lifestyle, is that perhaps you can absorb more calories than the average person that doesn't exercise because your output is more balanced. If I exercise and, like, for example, today I probably had an output just in those 2 hours of exercise of 1,000 calories. This morning I had the same breakfast as if I had only burned 500 or 600 calories. Mm-hmm. So basically I kind of paid it forward a little bit by exercising. My output was more than my input. So I think the benefit of exercising will allow you a little more parameters to eat by choice instead of necessity. Just my take on things.
Yes, 1,000 calories, that squeezes you in 2 guilt-free donuts, right? I mean, if you think about this, if the calculation is accurate, right? But you can indulge in the things that you like, right? If you put a lot of effort in.
Yeah, we just have to be aware. I think have a personal awareness of what you're doing.
Absolutely.
And I think that's a key word is awareness of your input to output ratio.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And you're saying day to day, yesterday is impacting tomorrow, and we can extend that time frame to not just be day to day, but week, month, year, decade. That's the whole idea. And it's okay to adopt that perspective, maintain your awareness day to day, but adopt that perspective for that long-term mindset. So what is the Sal 15 years from now going to be thanking you for today?
I feel I will benefit from feeling better for 15 years that I would not have had the same personal feeling of wellness had I not participated in exercise. And I basically added years to my life by making good choices in my physical lifestyle.
Yeah.
And so there's more. Yeah.
We don't know. It does buy you longevity. I really believe that, because a person that is not as healthy has more exposure to other health issues. Excessive weight may make you need a hip replacement because the wear and tear on your hips or your knees may shorten the life of your physical body.
Of your brain, of your hearts as well. Yeah,
I agree. I was looking more as like on the mobility side of things, but I agree. My my spouse actually is a vascular nurse,
Oh,
and she sees typically folks that are considerably overweight.
mhm.
Uh, for the most part, 95% of those persons don't exercise. So I see the other perspective of things, that they're diabetic because their body condition is not good, and then the diabetes leads to pressure ulcers. It leads to carotid artery issues. They develop plaque, heart issues. So because my spouse is a vascular nurse, I'm also aware of what can happen because of
Yes.
excessive weight and lack of exercise as well.
Does she exercise as well? Is there a specific
No,
routine the
no,
professionals in that space do?
she does not. My wife recently she became overweight, and she made the choice of taking appetite reducing shots.
Mhm.
They were prescribed by her doctor, and she noticed after, I'm just throwing out the numbers because I don't ask, everything, but basically I think she was like on a 5 milligram dosage of a appetite reducing shot of some sort.
Mhm.
And she said, I noticed that my appetite is coming back,
Mhm.
like not to the levels that it was before, but it takes more food, a little more food, to satisfy her appetite.
Mhm.
So she requested that her doctor, or spoke to her doctor about perhaps increasing that level. And I think that level is now, like, let's call it 7.5. So it's 50% more medicine to control the same volume of appetite.
Mhm.
And in my mind, it actually seems a little in reverse.
Mm.
My wife has lost approximately 30 pounds.
Okay, that's
So
remarkable.
it is. And this has been over a year.
Mhm.
Uh, and then I'm pleased to hear that and see that. But one thing I've come to realize as well, and part of our conversation today kind of helped me put things together. And again, those thoughts come to you over time, is that now she weighs 30 pounds, 25 or 30 pounds less than she weighed a year ago. She's taking an appetite suppressant drug of some sort.
Mhm.
Uh,
Yes.
her level of food before was balanced at, I'm just going to throw the number out. Let's just say 5 milligrams, just to keep things simple.
Yeah, simple.
5 milligrams. And now she has 30 pounds less of a body that needs to be maintained.
Mm.
And her body is asking her to keep the same appetite level less.
Mm.
It's asking for more medicine.
Yeah.
So it doesn't seem to make sense to me,
Mm.
because I know that typically a person that weighs more requires more calories to move that amount or mass of body weight. So to say that a body that naturally needs less energy to move 30 pounds less.
Mhm.
My wife, by the way, I think she weighed 195, and I think she's down to 165 or something like that. But she is 5 foot even.
Mhm.
So it kind of goes against like the theory of when you weigh more, you need more to eat. And now that the point is that she weighs less, but she's
Mm.
requiring more of a suppressant to eat,
Yes.
it doesn't seem to make sense to me. So perhaps you can share
We
and educate
can. Yes, we can. So let's break this down. So I assume, although again, I'm just guessing here, that there is a group of medicines that have appeared commercially, became commercially available relatively recently. We're talking about a decade or so. And we call them GLP-1 agonists. It stands for glucagon-like peptide-1 receptor agonists. So this is a class of injectable, but also I think now oral formulations are available. Medicines that were designed for treatments of diabetes originally, because they have a tendency to increase secretion of insulin and suppress the release of glucagon in the body. So they were designed to treat diabetes. But they also slower emptying of the stomach, so make people fuller for longer. And they act on hypothalamus in the brain, which essentially decreases the hunger. So they mimic the function of what we all have in our gut of the GLP-1 receptors. And those receptors, those are cells in our gut that regulate blood sugar and they regulate appetite, essentially. So those medicines make people feel full very fast at the beginning. So what happens is it's very easy to go into calorie deficit. They don't burn fats, right? They don't do anything. Those medicines simply make people eat less. Mm-hmm. Now, they're, as you can see, very effective tools in reducing body weight. Yes. But reduction in body weight is not the same as a reduction in body fat. So because when we go rapidly into calorie deficit, we're going to start losing muscle mass as well.
Right.
Now, when we're losing weight, fat cells don't go away. They just shrink. And this is the amount of fat cells that some researchers claim that sets a certain point of like what the body thinks it should, how much energy storage the body thinks it should have. So the further away you go from your baseline, the more hungry you can be, because the more your body would like to replenish the energy that it has lost. And the faster it happens, the more strong that response will be. Mm-hmm. So simply the body says, okay, we're losing energy. If this keeps happening, we're going to disappear. We need to do something. So the first thing is, okay, fine, we're going to reduce the muscle mass, because that will reduce the energy burn every day. That's where we're losing muscle. Now, fat cells shrink, the energy depletes, and the body starts saying, well, I need to do something now, because again, this cannot continue. So we need to eat more to restore the storage of energy that we had. So this is quite expected, that the further away you go from your starting point, the more appetite you might feel and the higher dose of the medicines you might require. Now, this happens, however, if you, during the time from when you start taking the medicines, you don't start building habits to sustain yourself. The moment you discontinue the drugs, the appetite's going to come back. You're going to eat and eat and eat more and more. Probably go back to the point where you started over time, if not more, because your body will know it needs to restore the number of, increase the size of the fat cells, probably produce more because it was in danger before of becoming extinct, right, of losing the energy. But you also will end up with less muscle than you were before. So you will need less energy to sustain that body mass than before. So when you stop taking those medicines, and you haven't built muscle mass, and you haven't built sustainable habits, as you have over the course of 10 years, the weight's going to go back, and you will need to eat less to maintain the old weight. Mm-hmm. And you're going to have less muscle mass, which is not good if you're getting older, because we know that one of the strongest predictors of longevity is lean muscle mass. Right? The more you have, the better. Right? It minimizes the risk of falls, increases your risk of surviving the diseases, minimizes the risk of accidents as well. So it's an important predictor of longevity, right? So those drugs are remarkable. They work very, very well. They allow people to go into energy deficit quickly, but typically they should be used as a tool on top of lifestyle changes. And the tools that we're talking about is primarily related to appropriate nutrition that is aimed to preserve the reduction of muscle mass and building sustainable habits. And getting into it, like, you will need to work out to build muscle, and you will need to continue doing this, and you will need to learn about portion size and what you can eat and when, and calories in and calories out.
Mhm.
So we believe that if you need to use those medicines, although you don't have to, if you need to, they work, but you need to be mindful, and they make your initial journey easier. But you need to put things into place to make sure you don't end up in a worse place than you started. So yeah, it might be a good idea to convince her that it works, but it's not enough, right? We still need to do more.
Yeah, I had mentioned she has access to the same gym that I do. She used to enjoy swimming at one time, and I actually, I mentioned perhaps you want to stop at the gym either on your way to work or on your way home, and perhaps do a little bit of swimming. My spouse is a little bit. She has a different. She's not as socially active as I am, and it's not because she sees less people than I do. She probably sees 12 or 15 patients a day. She is surrounded by a staff of 4 or 5 people. And I think her comfort zone is because she knows everything about what she does. And I think that's something that can be difficult sometimes. We feel invalid or we don't know. And not everybody is capable of asking questions. And I think it goes back to surrounding yourself with positive reinforcement, being in an environment where people that you can't ask someone a stupid question, because there is no stupid question. You need to be approachable and ask what you don't know. There's persons that are much more motivated than I am, and I'm okay with it. I kind of try to find a balance in what works for me.
Well, and I think also, Sal, you mentioned awareness around what you eat, but there's also awareness around what your motivations are. So we could perceive someone as being more motivated, but ultimately their priorities and their reasons might just be a little different than yours. And if you're aware of why you're doing something or where you want to go, that's part of the awareness too, day to day, right? And like you say all the time, it doesn't make it easier at all necessarily. Every day is different. Everybody's different. But I think that awareness piece and really, really understanding and digging down into why you're doing this for yourself and is really the differentiator between how we see people being motivated in different ways.
Yeah. And knowing is, as you told us, Sal, knowing is not enough. Right. It needs to be followed by doing.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. And I think you have to find something that motivates you.
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to be able to carry your grandchildren one day? Do you want to be able to care for your loved ones as they get older? If you are not in good physical condition, how can you help someone that may need your help? How this is important to me to live perhaps another 10 years longer in life.
Longer we call lifespan, right? That's what we extend. But there's also another aspect which we call the health span, and it is for how many years we maintain regular functioning, right? There might be little point in living extra 10 years when you're bedridden. It's very different if those are another 10 years of fulfilled life where you remain independent, right?
Quality of lifestyle.
That's it.
Yeah. It's not a quantity. I wouldn't want to live, to be 100 years old and the last 10 years of my life to be dependent or being a burden on the family that I love. That's not what I would never expect it. And I wouldn't want that as a person to burden my family. That's a choice. It really is. Some things are beyond our control. As I mentioned before, my friend, who is a cycle instructor, she is a massage therapist. she developed breast cancer. There's Fortunately, I think she's aware of and taking good care of herself, but things could happen to anyone. But I think by making good choices, we can reduce the odds that something negative or the possibility of having health issues by making good choices, whether it's food or exercise or a combination of both.
Yeah, and it looks like, Sal, you're nailing it, because we know we can extend both the lifespan, which is the amount of years in our life, and the health span, the amount of healthy years with, enjoying full quality of life. You seem to be doing all the right things, so it's very refreshing to see that, and you're able to maintain that. That's remarkable.
My father realistically didn't have quality of health or quantity. To die at 63 years old is not normal.
No.
In very few countries is the typical life. And it wasn't because he didn't have the financial means. He worked and he was a saver, but I just don't think he made the best of choices, even with the direction of his doctors. But I am 55. And the terms I use is, I have more years in the rear view mirror than I have looking out the windshield. So it's up to me to make every day count. And how I use those days that I have ahead of me will be determined by how well I take care of myself.
So, Sal, I think this is a very important thing for the listeners as well, because a lot of people don't realize what you just have said. So I live in the United Kingdom, and
yes.
For a male born in 1980s, so relatively recently, right?
Yes.
The average male life expectancy is 71.08 years. So let's say it's 71 years. It means that once you're 36, you have less life ahead of you than behind you.
Yes.
So a lot of people don't realize that. And sometimes you speak people close to retirement, and they're asking, when is a good time to start taking care of myself? Well, 30 years ago is the correct answer. It's a good perspective to have. If you're over 36 and you're not doing anything to make sure that you will remain healthy and strong and independent, well, think again.
No, I agree. That was a gentleman who I admire. Hard worker, successful businessman, says, time is one thing that will never forgive you. It keeps on going.
Thank you so much, Sal, for coming.
You're very welcome.
And inspiring others to live a healthy life as well.
You've shared with us a remarkable story, right? A story of success that most people don't get to see, right? You sustained your effort, you learned a lot. You're doing all the right things. You're in a much better place than you were 10 years ago.
Yes.
And it's been an inspiring story. Shared a lot of interesting things, both with regard to the environment and its impacts, and quite a few pearls of wisdom that will definitely, I believe, it will definitely help many of our listeners. So thank you. It's been a pleasure to hosting you, Sal, and it's a pleasure to meet you as well. And thank you for this.
Likewise.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thanks, Sal. Appreciate your time.
Of course.